The sun had not yet risen over the Celestial Defense Academy, but the grounds were already alive with activity. Cadets from countless star systems were running drills, testing their agility, and preparing for the day ahead. Their uniforms shimmered in colors, representing their home planets. Some had metallic skin, some had translucent veins glowing faintly, and some had forearms or extrasensory organs. Among them walked Elias Ward, the human cadet, moving with quiet confidence that seemed almost out of place. Elias was not tall or particularly strong, but his eyes held a spark that made others notice him. Unlike many cadets who relied on raw power or alien technology, Elias observed everything carefully, analyzing patterns and memorizing details no one else seemed to see. He had grown up on a harsh world where humans had to survive using brains more than brawn. That experience had shaped him into someone patient, cautious, yet daring when necessary. Today, however, there was a new challenge waiting. The cadets had been summoned to the Grand Hall, a vast chamber that glowed with energy panels and holographic displays. At the center stood Instructor Heron Vok, a veteran of countless galactic campaigns. His dark exoskeleton gleamed under the lights, and his piercing eyes scanned the room with sharp intensity. When he spoke, cadets felt the weight of centuries of knowledge in his voice. "Cadets," Heron began, his tone grave, "today you will be introduced to a threat unlike any you have faced before. A threat that cannot be destroyed with conventional weapons. A threat that has defeated fleets and armies across many worlds." The cadets leaned in, some with excitement, others with nervous apprehension. Elias's curiosity, however, sparked like fire. He straightened his posture and listened intently. Heron gestured, and a holographic image materialized in the center of the hall. It was a creature of pure energy, twisting and flowing like liquid light. The cadets stared in awe. "This," Heron continued, "is the Nullborn. It absorbs the energy of weapons, bypasses shields, and adapts to every attack. Every unit that has tried to engage it has failed. No projectile, no plasma, no energy beam can stop it." A murmur ran through the cadets. They had seen many dangerous creatures in simulations, but nothing like this. Elias felt his pulse quickened, with fear. But with anticipation, Heron's eyes swept across the room, finally landing on Elias. "You human," he said. "Do you understand the gravity of this warning?" Elias nodded calmly. "I understand, Instructor. But I also know that no challenge is completely impossible." Heron raised an eyebrow, a slight hint of surprise crossing his usually stern face. "We shall see," he replied. The cadets were then led to the training arena, a massive circular field surrounded by reinforced energy walls. The Nullborn simulation appeared instantly, floating in midair. Its form shifted and flowed, making it almost impossible to focus on any single point. "Your mission," Heron explained, "is simple. Engage the Nullborn. Study it, survive it. But remember, no weapon can stop it. Retreat, if necessary. No one has ever defeated it, and most have barely survived the encounter." Cadets drew their weapons, some traditional, some experimental. There were energy rifles, plasma lances, and particle disruptors. Elias, however, only held a simple kinetic launcher, a small device that fired solid projectiles at high speed. It looked unimpressive compared to the advanced alien weapons around him. The simulation began. Immediately, chaos erupted. The Nullborn moved faster than expected, passing through energy shields as if they were air. Cadets fired beams and bullets only to see them dissolve harmlessly as the creature absorbed their energy. Some cadets panicked, others froze. Elias observed, crouched behind a reinforced pillar. He noticed how the Nullborn responded to each attack. Every time a weapon hit, it shifted slightly, adjusting its form and speed to absorb the energy. But then, Elias noticed something subtle. When a projectile moved unpredictably, changing angles rapidly, the creature hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second, that tiny hesitation sparked an idea. He loaded his kinetic launcher and aimed carefully. Not at brute force, but at patterns that the Nullborn could not anticipate. The first shot was fired. The projectile hit, and the creature paused slightly, just as Elias had predicted. Without stopping, he fired 2 more shots from different angles, each timed carefully. The nullborn flickered, its shape unstable. The other cadets stared in shock. Did he just... whispered a young alien cadet with 4 arms. Instructor Heron's eyes widened slightly. He had seen countless attempts, and never had a human cadet cause such a reaction. Even in a simulation, the exercise ended, and the nullborn dissipated into harmless light. Cadets gathered their weapons, shaken and amazed. Ilias's classmates approached him, a mix of admiration and disbelief on their faces. You actually affected it, said a cadet from a water-based world. His voice bubbled with surprise. Elias shrugged. It's not about fighting it head-on. It's about understanding it. Every creature, every system, has a pattern. You just need to find the gap. Heron, still observing, finally spoke. Perhaps this human thinking is something we have underestimated. That evening, while the academy quieted and cadets returned to their quarters, Elias stayed behind in the lab. He studied the data from the simulation, mapping the nullborn's reactions to different types of attacks. He noticed that unpredictability, timing, and movement speed caused it to falter. Even if briefly, other cadets laughed at his human tricks, but Elias did not mind. He remembered how humans survived on their own hostile planet by improvising, by adapting, and by refusing to accept limits. He knew that brute force alone was useless against the nullborn. He needed creativity. Suddenly, the emergency alarms blared. The Academy's holographic display flashed red. A distress call had arrived from a nearby colony. Nullborn sighted, the announcement stated. All defensive units are failing. Immediate response required. Cadets rushed to the deployment area. Instructor Heron turned to them. This is not a drill. The nullborn is approaching the colony. All conventional weapons have failed. Panic and fear rippled through the cadets. Many wanted to retreat following the standard protocols. But Elias remained calm, almost serene. Heron noticed and said, "Human, are you certain you want to?" Elias met his gaze. "I want to try, Instructor. I know conventional weapons fail, but perhaps there is another way." Heron paused, then nodded slowly. "Very well. You will have my oversight. But remember, this creature does not forgive mistakes." The cadets boarded transport ships bound for the colony. The journey was tense. Silence filled the cabin except for the hum of engines. Elias studied the nullborn's previous behavior again, memorizing patterns and reactions. Other cadets whispered among themselves. Why does the human not fear it? He thinks he can beat it with... What? A simple launcher. Elias did not respond. He focused on the problem, visualizing the nullborn's movement and imagining how his device could exploit its momentary pauses. As the transport approached the colony, they could see the destruction left behind. Buildings had been flattened, shields dissolved, and terrified colonists ran in every direction. The nullborn hovered above a mass of flowing energy, impossible to gauge, impossible to touch. Instructor Heron placed a hand on Ilias's shoulder. "Remember, human. No one has ever stopped it." Elias nodded. "Then, I will not try to stop it conventionally. I will find a gap it cannot adapt to." The transport touched down, and cadets rushed into defensive positions. The nullborn turned toward them, sensing new energy sources. It moved with terrifying grace, absorbing and nullifying anything that came near. Cadets fired their most advanced weapons lasers, energy beams, pulse cannons, but the creature ignored them all. Elias crouched, loaded his kinetic launcher, and studied the nullborn carefully. His heart raced not from fear, but from excitement. This was the first real test. This was the moment where human thinking could make a difference. He aimed, calculating speed, angle, and timing. "This is not about force," he whispered to himself. "It is about strategy." And then, with a quiet determination, he fired. The projectile struck the nullborn's edge. For an instant, it flickered, its form unstable. Elias immediately fired another shot from a different angle, then another, each one timed to exploit the momentary pause. The nullborn twisted, tried to absorb the energy, but it could not adapt fast enough. The flicker grew stronger. Instructor Heron watched, jaw tight. Realizing that the impossible was happening, cadets stood frozen, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. The human cadet, using only his mind, was causing the unstoppable creature to falter. The story of Elias Ward, the human who refused to accept limits, had just begun, and the galaxy was about to witness something it had never seen before. The colony was in chaos. Buildings that once stood tall were now crumbled, and energy shields flickered weakly, barely holding against the Nullborn's unstoppable assault. Civilians ran in every direction, their faces filled with terror as the glowing mass of energy floated above, absorbing every weapon fired at it. Most cadets had already retreated to safer positions. Shocked and frightened by the sheer power of the creature, Elias Ward, however, stood firm. His kinetic launcher rested in his hands, its simple design almost laughable compared to the advanced alien weaponry around him. But Elias did not need firepower alone. He had seen the patterns, studied the reactions, and understood the one thing no other cadet seemed to notice: the Nullborn could be surprised. Instructor Heron Vok hovered nearby, his dark exoskeleton reflecting the chaos around them. "Human," he called, his voice tense. "Every weapon we have tried has failed. You could be walking into certain defeat." Elias glanced at him calmly. "Instructor, conventional weapons will fail. But this is not about power. It's about movement, unpredictability, and timing. I can create a sequence the Nullborn cannot anticipate." Heron's antennae twitched. "A sequence?" "Explain." Elias crouched, scanning the creature. "It reacts instantly to energy and force directed at it. But when an attack comes from multiple angles at unpredictable speeds, it struggles to adapt. Its reactions are not infinite. If I time the projectiles correctly, even a simple launcher can disrupt it." Heron studied him, and for the first time, he considered the possibility. "You think a human idea could succeed where our fleets could not?" Elias nodded. "I have to try." The other cadets shook their heads, muttering under their breath. "He's crazy. It's a death wish. A human can't possibly do this." Elias ignored them. His focus was absolute. He knew he had one chance to test his theory before the creature moved on and destroyed more of the colony. He took a deep breath, loaded multiple projectiles into his launcher, and began calculating the angles, timing, and speed. Unlike other cadets who relied on brute force or sophisticated alien energy beams, Elias had only one advantage: the ability to think creatively under pressure. His eyes darted across the Nullborn's movements, reading the subtle changes in its energy patterns. Every flicker, every shift, every pause was a clue. Nearby, Heron Vok observed silently. The instructor had seen many soldiers fail, even experienced veterans, but something about Elias was different. There was a quiet confidence in the human's eyes, a refusal to accept impossibility. Elias fired the first projectile. The Nullborn's edge flickered slightly, just for a heartbeat. That was all Elias needed. Without hesitation, he fired the second projectile from a different angle. Then a third, slightly faster, and a fourth. Timed perfectly, the Nullborn twisted violently, trying to absorb the energy, but it could not react fast enough. Its glowing form pulsed and wavered as if struggling to maintain stability. Cadets gawked, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. Heron Vok's voice broke the silence. "Impossible. It is faltering." Elias adjusted his aim and fired again, targeting the areas where the Nullborn had shown momentary weakness. The energy mass wavered, then collapsed slightly before regaining its form. For the first time, it had been visibly affected by a human strategy rather than raw weapon power. One of the alien cadets, a tall figure with crystalline limbs, whispered in disbelief, How is he doing this?" "Our weapons. All failed." Elias didn't answer. His focus never left the Nullborn. Each shot was precise, calculated, and timed. He realized that the creature's reaction was predictable, but only if approached in a way no one had tried before. Every human decision mattered: the speed of firing, the pattern of angles, and the subtle pauses between shots. The Nullborn hissed and shifted, a soundless disturbance in the air, as if it sensed something new, something foreign. Elias noted the reactions carefully, adjusting the next sequence. This was not a fight of strength, but a puzzle of movement and timing. Hours passed, or maybe only minutes. Time had lost meaning in the middle of the battle. The colony remained in peril, but the Nullborn's progress slowed. Buildings that had already begun collapsing now remained intact, at least temporarily. Civilians looked on from hiding places, eyes wide with hope and confusion. "Human, you are." "Remarkable," Harian admitted, his voice low. "You are thinking in ways our strategy manuals never considered. Your mind is your weapon." Elias glanced at him briefly and said, "It is not my mind alone. It is human adaptability. We survive by observing, learning, and finding solutions no one else sees. Brute force only works until it fails. Strategy continues until it succeeds." The instructor nodded slowly. He had taught thousands of cadets, but none had demonstrated this level of creativity under extreme pressure. Harian realized that humans were underestimated not because of weakness, but because other races had never truly studied their approach to problems. Elias continued his methodical assault, firing sequences that no one could predict. Every shot disrupted the Nullborn's form, every angle exploited a weakness the creature did not know it had. It twisted violently, energy spiraling outward, trying to absorb the attacks, but failing. The other cadets watched silently. Some whispered to each other. Some simply stared, realizing they had underestimated the human. The advanced alien weapons, plasma beams, energy cannons, particle disruptors were useless against the Nullborn. Yet this human, with a simple kinetic launcher, had found a way to affect it. Suddenly the Nullborn shrieked, a soundless vibration that made the air itself seem unstable. Its energy form pulsed violently. Elias noted the pattern. It was exhausted, confused, trying to adapt to multiple simultaneous attacks it could not fully predict. He fired again, faster this time. Final series of projectiles timed perfectly. The creature wavered, then collapsed completely, vanishing in a flash of harmless light. The colony was safe, at least for now. Silence fell over the battlefield. Cadets stared at Elias, their faces a mix of awe and disbelief. Harian Vox stepped forward, his antennae raised in approval. "You have done what no fleet, no army, no weapon could achieve. You have stopped the Nullborn." Elias lowered his launcher, breathing steadily. "I did not stop it with force," he said quietly. "I stopped it with understanding. Every problem has a solution, even those that seem impossible." Cadets approached him hesitantly, offering congratulations. Some shook their heads in disbelief. "You, a human. You actually did it." Elias smiled slightly. "Not me alone. It's human thinking. We adapt, we improvise, and we refuse to give up. That is what makes the difference." Harian looked at the young cadet with newfound respect. Perhaps it is time the Academy studies this approach. Human strategy. Your method. It is a lesson all cadets must learn. Word of the event spread quickly throughout the Academy and beyond. News channels, both local and galactic, reported that a single human cadet had managed to halt the Nullborn, a creature considered unstoppable. Leaders, strategists, and commanders from countless planets discussed the implications. Back at the Academy, Elias was awarded a commendation not for bravery in battle, but for ingenuity and problem-solving. While many cadets relied on weapons and technology, Elias had relied on his mind, creativity, and ability to see patterns others ignored. That evening, Harian Vox spoke to the cadets. "Remember this lesson. When you face something no one else can overcome, force alone may fail. But innovation, observation, and courage, these are weapons that cannot be destroyed." Today, one human reminded us of that truth. Elias sat quietly, looking at the night sky from the Academy's observation deck. Stars stretched across the darkness, endless and bright. He knew that this was only the beginning. The Nullborn had been a challenge, but many more would come. And in each challenge, he would rely not on superior firepower, but on the human ability to adapt, to think, and to refuse limits. He smiled faintly, recalling his planet's saying, "When others see a wall, a human sees a path." In that moment, Elias felt a quiet confidence. The galaxy was vast, threats were many, and the Nullborn was just the first of what he would face. But he was ready, not because he had the strongest weapon, but because he had the strongest strategy: human ingenuity. The Academy would never look at humans the same way again. And for Elias Ward, the human cadet, the adventure was only beginning. The colony lay in uneasy silence after the Nullborn's defeat. Its streets were filled with debris, shields were repaired, and survivors emerged from hiding. Yet no one celebrated. Everyone knew that the Nullborn had been only a single test, and that the galaxy contained far greater dangers. For many alien races, the idea that a human cadet had stopped the unstoppable creature was almost impossible to accept. Elias Ward, however, did not dwell on fame or accolades. He returned his kinetic launcher to the Academy's armory and quietly began analyzing the battle logs. Every projectile, every angle, every slight pause of the Nullborn had been recorded. Elias studied them again, not to boast, but to understand. Each pattern told him something about energy creatures, adaptability, and survival. Instructor Heron Vok approached him as he worked. "Cadet," he said, his voice calm but firm, "your performance has been exceptional. But remember, this is only the beginning. The galaxy will test humans in ways we cannot predict." Elias looked up, his face steady. "I am ready, Instructor." This was only the first lesson. Heron nodded. "Good. The Council has already taken notice. They wish to study your methods. Human strategy. Your approach, it has changed how they will teach cadets from all species." Despite the praise, Elias did not feel relief. There was no time to rest. While one Nullborn had been stopped, reports indicated that more had appeared near other colonies. Entire sectors were at risk. The galaxy was watching, and humans were still largely unknown in capability. This was his chance to show that humans were not to be underestimated. The Academy quickly dispatched teams to the new locations. Elias, along with Instructor Heron and a small squad of cadets, boarded a fast transport ship heading to a colony under immediate threat. The journey was tense. Most cadets remained silent, some fearful, others still skeptical of human tactics. Elias, however, was focused. He studied the incoming reports. The new Nullborn was larger, more unpredictable, and more aggressive than the last. It moved faster and seemed to anticipate energy attacks more efficiently. Conventional weapons had already failed in initial encounters. The colonists had been evacuated, but the Nullborn was destroying infrastructure, draining entire power grids, and threatening to destabilize the planet's atmosphere. Elias spoke calmly to his team. "Do not rely on force. I have observed that these creatures can adapt, but they cannot adapt to unpredictability. Our goal is to disrupt, not destroy. We create confusion, exploit their pauses, and force them to lose coherence." A cadet with 4 arms blinked in disbelief. "You expect a simple launcher to handle that?" Elias smiled faintly. "It is not simple. It is human thinking." When the transport ship landed, the team quickly set up defensive positions. The Nullborn floated above, a massive wave of energy, pulsing with a bright glow. Every weapon fired at it was absorbed or nullified instantly. Heron observed quietly, trusting Elias's judgment. "Human," he said, "this creature is more powerful than the last. You must be careful." Elias nodded. Careful does not mean passive. Observe, adapt, act. The battle began. The Nullborn moved faster than anyone expected. Cadets fired energy beams and plasma cannons, which disappeared instantly. Most of the squad retreated, unsure of how to engage the creature effectively. Elias, however, crouched behind a reinforced energy barrier. Scanning its movements carefully, he noticed a pattern of slight hesitation every few seconds. A micropause that indicated the creature was processing incoming attacks. The same principle that worked before could work again. But the execution had to be faster, smarter, more precise. Elias loaded his kinetic launcher with multiple projectiles, each designed to follow a different trajectory at varying speeds. He adjusted timing, calculated angles, and focused entirely on the nullborn. His human mind worked quickly, creating a sequence that no other race had attempted. He fired the first projectile. The nullborn paused. Then, almost immediately, Elias fired the second, third, and fourth, each from different angles and speeds. The creature's energy mass twisted violently, struggling to absorb the unpredictable attack. Its form flickered, unstable, pulsing with distorted light. Cadets who had remained in hiding stared in disbelief. It's reacting," whispered one. Instructor Heron's antennae twitched as he observed the spectacle. "Incredible. Human strategy in action," he muttered. Elias continued, firing shot after shot. The nullborn writhed, trying to adapt, but the human pattern was impossible for it to predict. Each projectile disrupted the energy flow, causing brief collapses in its form. Then, Elias did something unexpected. He fired 2 projectiles simultaneously at angles designed to intersect midair around the nullborn. The creature faltered more than ever before, energy dispersing in a flash that illuminated the entire battlefield. Cadets gasped, stepping back in shock. Heron spoke firmly. "Do not underestimate it. You may have found a way to disrupt it, but it is still dangerous." Elias nodded. "I know, Instructor. I will not stop until it is neutralized." The nullborn, sensing the concentrated human attack, pulsed violently and attempted to surge toward Elias. The cadets braced themselves, but Elias was ready. He had calculated the sequence down to fractions of a second. Every movement was precise. He fired a final volley, projectiles striking from multiple directions simultaneously. The nullborn shuddered, its energy dispersing, pulsing, and flickering wildly. Then, with a final collapse of light and energy, it dissipated completely. Silence fell over the battlefield. Cadets stepped forward cautiously. Checking that the threat had truly ended, Heron approached Elias, his eyes reflecting both relief and admiration. "Cadet Ward, you have done what no fleet, no army, no weapon could achieve. You have neutralized the nullborn, not with firepower, but with intellect, creativity, and courage." Elias lowered his launcher, breathing steadily. "It is not just me, Instructor. It is human thinking. We do not rely on brute force alone. We adapt, we observe, and we find solutions where others see none." The cadets around him, previously doubtful, now looked at him with awe. Many began to understand that human ingenuity was a form of power that could not be ignored. Some whispered, "This is remarkable." Others muttered, "A human has saved us all." News of the victory spread quickly. Across the galaxy, reports emerged of a human cadet stopping the unstoppable nullborn. Military strategists, scholars, and commanders debated how a single human could succeed where entire fleets had failed. Many alien leaders were forced to reconsider their assumptions about humanity. Back at the Academy, Elias received commendations not only for bravery, but for innovation. The instructors decided to integrate human-inspired tactics into their training curriculum. Strategy, creativity, and adaptability were now officially recognized as critical components in dealing with threats that brute force could not overcome. Heron, Voke addressed the cadets in a lecture hall filled with eager students. "Today we witness the power of human thinking. When others see an impossible obstacle, a human sees a puzzle. When others retreat, a human looks for a path. Let this be a lesson to all cadets. Intellect, courage, and creativity can achieve what weapons cannot." Elias, seated quietly in the back, observed the students' reactions. Some were inspired, some confused, but all understood the significance of the human example. He did not feel pride or glory. For him, this was a reminder of what humans had always known. Survival depended not on power alone, but on the mind and the will to act. That night, Elias returned to the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Endless points of light stretched across the darkness, representing worlds, civilizations, and countless challenges yet to come. He knew the galaxy was vast and that many dangers remained, but he also knew that human adaptability, creativity, and courage were forces that no one could underestimate. He whispered to himself, recalling an old saying from his homeworld, "When others see a wall, a human sees a path in the quiet night." Elias Ward felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The Nullborn had been only the first test, but the galaxy had witnessed something new: a human mind, unbound by limits, capable of seeing solutions where others saw only failure. And for the first time, many in the galaxy realized that humans were not just another species to be underestimated. Humans were thinkers, strategists, and problem solvers. Humans could face the impossible and find a way to succeed. Elias turned from the stars, ready to face the next challenge. The galaxy would not forget what had happened today, and neither would he, because in a universe full of threats that no weapon could stop, a human had proven that there was always a way found not by power, but by intelligence, courage, and the refusal to give up.